I'm State Senator Tony Hwang, representing the 28th District, representing Fairfield, Easton, Newtown, and Bethel. I am here to speak in favor of Senate Bill 524, an act conveying a parcel of land in the town of Easton. But I come through this with a reiteration of how this committee is so valued in the land conveyance process. Having been in this General Assembly many years, I appreciate the transparency and the accountability of land conveyance that is going through this committee to have an exchange and feedback from many of the shareholders to be better acquainted and making the best direction moving forward. With that being said, I am grateful for the feedback in the transparency of this request. As a very strong environmental advocate and an advocate for Easton, in this case, of a town that represents nearly over 70% of its town being a watershed, watershed protection and water safety is absolutely paramount. And this received many feedback, many educational feedback from the advocates such as Aquarian Water, DEEP, Nature Conservancy, and the Aspetuck Land Trust. We took that feedback very, very strongly and gratefully in regards to the potential impact of this request. And as a result of that, we want to report to the committee leadership that we are open to clarifying the request in beyond the original request of over 6 acres that impacted watershed areas that were raised. We are hoping to, with the committee's guidance and many of the advocates that have offered input, to be able to work with us to look at a parcel of land, potentially 1 acre, that is not watershed, and to be able to utilize that for the goal of this land conveyance request. And at the heart of this proposal is a deeply meaningful purpose of why. This open area is intended to be a living memorial to Eunice and Lee Hansen, both of which are long time champions and advocates of the town of Easton, but also to the Congregational church that is advocating for this memorial. But an equally powerful rationale and poignantly to be able to create this memorial garden is, unfortunately, Eunice and Lee Hansen suffer one of the greatest tragedies that could befall any family member when they lost their son and their daughter-in-law and their young granddaughter in the tragedy of 9/11. They were on the plane from Boston that was hijacked, and they perished in that tragedy of 9/11. And in the years following that, Eunice and Lee and Eunice continued until recently, championed to never ever forget. The town of Easton in its small green has a memorial to the Hansen family in the 9/11 memorial. But this garden has a special poignancy because the hope is to create a pollinator garden in honor of the youngest victim of 9/11, because her love of butterflies and their intent to create a pollinator garden. So the purpose of this request is noble, well-intentioned. It hopes to maintain the open space preservation and the buffer to the watersheds that we all hold dearly, and the advocates of this land request hold dearly. And so I will now defer with the indulgence of the chair to allow Mr. Don Boyce, a representative of the church, to be able to offer their approach to this request. Through you, ma'am.
Thanks, Tony. Madam Chair, esteemed members, my name is Don Boyce. I live in Easton. I am the treasurer of the Congregational Church of Easton and the person who put together the application for the conveyance. Because I am not a political animal or familiar with the forms, I thought I was supposed to ask for the entirety of the property, the 6.85 acres. The church is in no way, shape, or form able to maintain wetlands, and I believe the stewardship is doing just fine. For over 65 years, the parking lot in our building, we have a sub-building, has been rented, first from Bridgeport Hydraulic, later Aquarian, now from Deep. It started at $1 a year, and now we're up to $100 a year. And one of the reasons why I requested the conveyance was to make sure that that would never, ever be removed. Also, there is a stretch of land in the 6.85 acres that, according to the GIS map with the town of Easton, that is farmland, not wetlands. That is the property that we were interested in acquiring. It's just this one strip, maybe 40 to 50 feet wide at most, that runs parallel to the parking lot. And so one of the reasons why we picked that location as far as for the pollinator gardens and things like that is because if you look in my testimony that I submitted, on the last page, I show you the pictures that are the view from the building. We have a Montessori school coming in September. I thought it'd be a lot better for them to see a nice view of flowers and butterflies and natural flora and fauna as opposed to the invasive species that's been allowed to creep in there for the past, 30, 40 years. As far as what Senator Hwang talked about, yes, Eunice was very important to the town, so was her husband. She was a registrar of voters for over 20 years. He was on the Board of Finance for over 25 years. And almost all the money that they received as settlement for that tragedy, they gave back. Whether it was a high school scholarship or a college scholarship for both of the parents that passed. And then for little Christine, who loved butterflies, as Tony talked about, they funded the butterfly exhibit at the Beardsley Zoo. So it was constantly giving back, giving back, giving back. So I strongly believe that we should do something as nice for them as they have done for everyone else. And I also think that they want to keep this legend and reputation alive, that how great would it be for the little kids in Montessori to go out and they see all this, and it causes that discussion and maybe leads them to have interest in it. I know my daughter, my oldest daughter, is getting her PhD in environmental engineering at Duke, and her specialty is wetlands. So I'm not unfamiliar with the process, and there is no way, shape, or form we would ever want to impede on that. But having recognized that and knowing the background as well, I know that what we're requesting would not jeopardize anything with the wetlands. If it would, then I wouldn't even make the ask. But again, I'm concerned about the parking situation, that it was always ours. And if more so, then if we can get the additional extra, again, 30 to 50 feet that goes from property to property, then I think we could do something of it as far as clearing it out, getting rid of the invasive species, and making that single stream pollinator pathway that has become so popular. So.
I just wanted to follow up on that in the sense that this is always going to be maintained as open space, and both of us and many of the and if not all of the advocates believe and treasure the protection of watersheds. And I mean it sincerely that this committee and the process of land conveyance is a great example of transparency and accountability and engagement, that a well-intentioned idea with better information and better engagement from all impacted shareholders is valued. And so we're glad to take any questions from the committee, but I will offer to you that upon learning of the feedback from many of the advocates that I talked about, that I have great respect and admiration for, we have reached out too deep to seek their guidance. I have spoken to Aquarian and their expertise in watershed protection in seeking their guidance to be able to work together to create a win-win proposition. We're going to work with all the necessary parties and also the guidance of this committee and its members and leadership to be able to facilitate this. But again, I will close by simply reiterating, this is a well-intended purpose to honor a family that has given so much to the Easton community and befitting a memorial to always remember and never forget of the tragic impact of 9/11. And both of us now welcome any questions from the Value Committee members. Thank